listening to Best Forevers, a podcast for kindred spirits. I'm Alysa Lucas, and I'm ready to party. I'm thinking of Kristen Wiig in Bridesmaids when she's on the airplane. Party. Okay, anyways, it's now summer break, folks. The Michigan weather is finally sunny and beautiful. I'm getting ready for an amazing trip abroad with my dear friend Tara, and Nerdy Bitches podcast is about to reach 100 episodes. Whoop, whoop! Liz and Heather, congratulations on reaching such an awesome milestone and giving us the nerdiest and bitchiest podcast ever. So in honor of their 100th episode releasing in a few weeks, I wanted this episode to focus on them and their friendship. They love Harry Potter, Marvel or DC, Star Trek or Star Wars. I love these things too, but the fandom that I truly nerd out over, and you know this, is friendship. I like to call it friendom. You know, like fandom, but friendom. Okay, do I need to go back to the drawing board on that? I will. Okay. So fellow nerds and or fellow bitches, join me in celebrating this cool podcast and the cool friendship of Liz and Heather. So I just wanted to start off, though, with, for those, I'm sure there will be many people who know who you are, but I thought it would also be good to have you introduce yourself. So could you introduce yourselves and then tell us a little bit about your podcast?
Okay, well, I'm Liz.
And I'm Heather.
And we are the Nerdy Bitches podcast.
Yay!
Or, excuse me, we are Nerdy Bitches podcast because producer Craig has told us that saying "the" in front of our name makes us sound old. Like the Twitter and the Facebook. But we are kind of old, so there's that.
Yeah, me too. I think based on the episodes I've listened to, we're similar in age because, so I started with the first episode, right? And I was listening and I was like, oh, you were at the Star Wars film when you were 9 months. My parents took me to that when I was born in 78, but it was in the drive-in.
Oh, wow.
So I do think we're similar in age. But anyways, Tell us a little about what is the premise of your podcast. Tell us a little bit about not the Nerdy Bitches or the Nerdy Bitches, but Nerdy Bitches podcast.
No, so our show is basically two geeky ladies just podcasting our way through pop culture. We talk about movies. We have a regular book club where we pick a selection, read it, and then bitch about it on our show. We are not kid friendly. I will just throw it out there.
Excellent. Good point.
We're not gross or anything. We just probably have a touch of Tourette's. So we are not to be trusted with language.
Although we have been accused of objectifying men on occasion. But in general, it's only because we've been objectified as women. So we feel it's free game every once in a while.
Yeah, just evening things out.
And again, we're still not gross about it. So any of the guys who complained about it, they can suck it. So.
And if they're listening to my show and they hear about it, then they can suck it too.
There you go. Yeah, basically we are two friends who decided we were going to sit down and have a podcast, and that's the fun part about it, I guess. Sometimes we'll have guests on. We currently have other ladies on our show just because we think that the rest of the podcasting world is a bit of a sausage fest.
Yes.
So we kind of stick to having ladies on our show. We've done a couple of crossovers with dude shows, but that's kind of who we are and what we're about. So we talk about anything you could imagine in the realm of nerdery. So.
Now, do you count any fandom as nerdery? So if people are fans, like I know you're both into Harry Potter, which I am too, but there's other fandoms, right? You know, so Supernatural and people who are really into that TV show, or maybe those actors, I don't know. So
they're hot.
Yeah, totally. So do you think the nerdy part of pop culture, is that really broad, or do you see that as being narrow? How would you all define that?
I think it's fairly broad, personally. And I really think that the nerd world extends much further than people want to admit. And that even people who are big jocks are also nerds in their own right. Because if you ever talk to a big jock, they can tell you every stat from every player, every team, their whole roster, their lineup, how much money they make. that's a nerd thing right there. That is big. And fantasy football is D&D for jocks.
Yeah,
So
totally.
they could say what they want. Like we explore the fandoms that we like, and we have also tried to broaden our horizons as well and bring in things that we aren't necessarily into or would like to learn more about. So a couple of years ago, we did a whole section on anime. Neither of us are big anime fans, so we wanted to learn more about it. We brought some guests on to tell us. Same thing with cosplay. Heather, what were some of the other things we did? I've forgotten.
Well, sometimes we just talk about like our geek crushes too. So we brought other people's perspective on it because sometimes, what we like in particular may not reflect everybody. So we brought people on and be like, let's talk about our geek crushes. And apparently everybody loves Maggie Smith is what we did.
Totally.
Yeah, so we like to broaden our horizons and our listeners as well, because we don't want to alienate anyone and they're like, oh, well, there's nothing there for me. So if there's something there that we haven't discussed, we'd like to know so that we can make that happen. And again, it's something that opens our eyes to a whole new area that we may or may not have ever gotten into just because we didn't think it was along the lines of what we wanted.
Like in particular, the anime episode, I started really liking Black Butler and Attack on Titan because I kind of watched it to prepare for it. So we are an all-encompassing nerd fandom, and we encourage everybody else to be as well and to not push out anybody that may be new to a fandom. So we'll be as newbie as anybody else. We're willing to be out there and to make it the whole community kind of more inclusive.
That's awesome.
One of the things we picked up in 2017 was we decided we wanted to do an intro to Dungeons and Dragons for beginners. So people who have never played it before, or maybe just had some preconceived notions, or they knew this one nerd in high school that played in his mom's basement.
Yeah.
And we wanted to talk about it from a female perspective, like what is this, historically meant? Why are women not playing? And the fact is they're playing a lot.
Yeah.
And so what we decided to do is we decided to start a game. And my husband is our dungeon master, our DM. So he's running a game for us. And we had all ladies, but a couple of guys have crept in. So we have a couple of guys on the show as well. Though one of them is playing a female character, so that makes it even more fun.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So we wanted to kind of take it out of the myth and get away from it looking like this big giant, like, oh my gosh, if you play this, you're such a nerd, like in the most negative connotation. And we wanted to bring it, much more to the forefront and say, you know what, this is just fun. It's theater of the mind. It's something that's very entertaining, very creative, and it gives you a lot of options. Plus, we play with the snarkiest people we know, and that is always fun.
Yeah, I love snarky.
You can think that D&D is as nerdy as you want, but we got the coolest bitches on that podcast, and so pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, so now my sort of what I do, I'm someone who loves friendship. I always have, and I think that we live in a society that does not focus on friendship. So my podcast is all about bringing friendship to the forefront. And so one of the things that I do on my show is the friendship origin story. And so what is the Liz and Heather origin story? Do y'all remember it? Is it a different story? Did you just become friends and you don't remember? How did you, Liz and Heather, come to be friends?
Well, I remember, at least from my perspective, we've known each other since, what did we decide, Heather, 2007?
Oh my goodness. It's been a long time because I moved to Houston in 2003 and I met you maybe 4 years later.
Yeah, I remember because I was working for a particular company and here in Houston, and my job, my master's degree and everything else that I have is industrial organizational psychology.
Oh, interesting.
Which sounds really weird. So basically, I'm a corporate trainer, and my job is to train up managers and employees to make them better human resources for a company. So one of my jobs was to put together a training program, and in doing so, I hired Heather's husband, the company that he was working with at the time, to come in and be one of my trainers. And I hit it off really well with this company, with, the 3 people that work there. Like, I loved all of them. We all got along very, very well. And apparently they all talk about me behind my back in a really positive way. I don't know, I've heard it multiple times from people. They're like, we have a shrine to you in our office. It's like, okay, that's weird. And so the next time I had her husband scheduled to come out, he said, my wife really would love to meet you. She's heard so much about you, and she thinks you're dating this other guy from our company, which I was not.
Yeah.
I was not at all.
Also, somehow vampires got thrown in there. Like, I don't remember how it came up, but before the day I met her, I was like, hey, I've got these vampire books. Do you want to read them?
Yeah, she did. She totally brought me the Sookie Stackhouse book.
Nice.
I was like, sure, I'll read a vampire book. That sounds awesome. So yeah, so when her husband came to train that day, she came and had lunch with us in the middle of the day. And so that is how we met. I was trying to think today, where did we go? I don't remember. It was somewhere on the rail line.
Treebeards.
Was it Treebeards?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. Treebeards.
We had the best red beans and rice.
Oh, they're so good. I love that place.
I just love as people tell the stories, together, that you can add in details and that sort of thing. So when you met at lunch, do you feel like it felt like right away that you were going to be friends, that you were going to be able to hit it off?
I think so. Yeah, I liked her. I'm a very friendly person. I'm a very outgoing person. I'm also a snarky bitch. So sometimes that kind of turns some people off, but those aren't people I want to hang out with anyway.
True.
And Heather had the right amount of snark, and she was fun, and she liked the same nerdy geeky stuff that I did. So I was like, well, hey, I'm very happy to cultivate this. And I think we just started going to movies together. Maybe. I know we saw a couple of Harry Potters and a couple of Twilight.
Your divorce party.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I am married now, but I was married then to someone else. And Heather had a jewelry party, like a MLM, was it Cookie Lee? So I don't know, something. She had some kind of jewelry party. And it was the same day that my divorce was finalized. And so it kind of became both the jewelry / divorce party.
How much jewelry did you buy for yourself?
I bought quite a bit. Yeah. It was a good day.
I would have gotten a bunch of money back, but I was like, no, I'm going to buy stuff.
Yeah. Every time I've ever had a party like that, I just spend what I would have earned on the jewelry. I'm like, I don't need anything. Yeah. I'm like, buy more stuff.
I was thinking about how we met earlier today, and I was thinking about it like normally in that situation, like somebody would probably in my position be kind of jealous of this like woman that my husband spends a lot of time with and really likes. And I've always, and I've said this on the podcast too before, is that feeling of like jealousy and irritation at women, I try and rise above that because I know it's just stuck in my head from like years of genetic and society coding.
Yes.
And you get the best friends if you just get rid of that and you just think over that. And so, I mean, I would have missed out on being friends with Liz if I decided to be jealous of this other woman that my husband was talking about at the office. And I know it sounds weird. I mean, Liz probably would never think that I was like jealous of her, but I was just like, there is an initial like reaction that society tells you to have, like when your husband is friends with a lady, right?
I will tell you that I was a little nervous to meet you just because I knew they were talking about me in the office. I don't know why. I really don't. I mean, I as much as I would love to stroke my own ego and be like, I'm just awesome. I don't think that's a thing, but for whatever reason, they kind of did, and more power to them, and that's fine. And I'm still good friends with like 2 out of 3 of them, and I just but it's a little weird because her husband is a very honest guy. He's very straightforward, and he told me up front she thought I was dating this other guy, and I was married, and he was married, and I certainly was not dating him at all. And he's also like 40 years older than I am, so it's like no, maybe not 40, but he was not aging well, but he's older, like fairly significantly older. And but it was kind of weird. I was like, is this lady going to come and punch me in the face? Like, why does she want to meet me? That's weird. I don't know. But I'm so glad that I wasn't like, a chicken shit about it and running away. Like, no, I gotta stay here for a meeting. Sorry. I was like, because I met just an amazing, awesome friend. Yeah. And we have done so much together over the years between, scrapbooking together and just all the stuff that you just wouldn't think that people sit down and do together. Like I didn't have friends like this before, before I met Heather, before I left my ex. I didn't have friends who wanted to do stuff together. Mm-hmm. Or if we did, it was maybe go to a movie. Like I had, I just had kind of fair weather friends. And, I've been so fortunate and so blessed to have these amazing people come into my life. And I think just being open to it and not being scared of meeting new people. Because I went to the same high school or the same school for 12 years. Like I didn't have to make friends.
Yeah.
I knew everyone.
Just everyone knows. Yeah. Everyone just knows each other. Yeah.
You just know each other. And at some point in your life, you've been friends, or at least you know who people are. So you don't really have to learn to make friends.
Yeah.
And when I went away to college, I suffered from some pretty severe depression at the time. And so I didn't really learn how to do that. I just had the friends I already had. And so to have to learn as I got older to make new friends and to put myself out there and risk some lady showing up and punching me in the face because she thinks I'm having an affair with her husband or the guy in the office or whatever, it's a scary thing, but doing it can be so rewarding.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you mentioned this. So I'm a communication professor, and so I study relationships. My main area is obviously friendship, but one of the first things that I studied, what I wanted to study was jealousy. And so I did my thesis on the topic, and I've done some other research and just did an episode on it. There will be several because it's a topic that's sort of near and dear to my heart, that we sort of in our society act like the only time jealousy occurs is in romantic relationships, which is sort of what happened here, that you said, you rise above that, Heather, right? You rise above that, thinking that, there's this woman in the workplace. And I think one of the reasons why jealousy can exist not only in romantic relationships, but also among friends is because our society sets it up where women are in competition with each other. And they're in competition for each other for men. And that if we didn't compete with each other, if we're supportive of each other, or you rise above it, using your words, that you can have these amazing friendships that we would have never had at all. And I also really appreciate what you said, Liz, about how hard it is to make friends and like putting yourself out there. I think that is amazing. And to think that you've known each other now, how many years, that if you just would have said, no, I can't do lunch today, that you might not have ever met Heather, right? Or if Heather was like, ugh, this Liz girl at work, like, I mean, just think about like how many times a day we do those sorts of things with people that we might miss out on things. And I think that's really important. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting road for me because it's a weird story. There's a lady that used to ride the bus that I rode, and I hated her. I never met her. I never spoke to her, but for whatever reason, I just hated this one with a fiery passion. Everything about her annoyed me. And there wasn't any real reason behind it. I didn't have, you just get like that. And every time I would see her, and I would just, because every time you see that person you just don't like, and you're like, I just don't like them. And it would make me stop and think. I'm like, I have nothing against this woman. Like, I literally don't know her. I've never spoken to her. I have never even heard her speak. She's just someone I see and somehow have this weird visceral reaction to. And it makes you take a look at yourself and look inside and go, why am I thinking this? Why am I feeling this way? And that can be a very difficult thing to kind of look inside yourself and try to really face those things and address those things, because when you live in it, that's when you just become that person you don't want to be, that negative person, the little black rain cloud kind of girl. And who wants to live like that? I mean, it sucks. I did it for years, but it's not fun. So
we were just talking about this in class today, actually. It's when you like someone, you talk to them differently than when you dislike them. So even like how you approach them, or if you would talk to them at all, or if you avoid them. And so it's like, if you have that feeling of, I do not like this person, anytime you would have to interact with them, it's kind of like, oh, not this person. Check out this motherfucker. It's like, check out this person, right? But when you like someone, you treat them completely differently. And so I think that you're right, that it can take you to places maybe you don't want to be. But also at the same time, sometimes people are just annoying as shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just not going to work, right? We can't be friends with everyone. We can't get along with everyone.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad in this situation that it worked out for you, because it seems to be a great friendship, right?
Well, if it hadn't, we would definitely not have 3 years and 91 podcast episodes out there. That's for sure.
Yes.
The runtime of 3.5 hours.
This is what happens because she and I now we live in different states, but we were living in the same town, but we didn't live super close, not super far away is in Houston standards. We measure travel time in hours, not miles. So we're like, it took me an hour to get there. Where was it? 10 minutes away. That's how it works. But so we didn't get to see each other all that often, which, and then when we started doing podcasting, we would see each other more. But we might see each other once a month and record 4 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, when you don't see somebody on a super regular basis, it makes it really tough to try to do an hour-long or less podcast because there's so much to say. And every time somebody says something else, it triggers a thought of, oh shit, I've been meaning to tell you this story and I was going to blah, blah, blah. It really triggers that. And that's why we get these long rambling things. And I was a little concerned at first. I was like, because we didn't edit. Like we only just started editing our show in like yesterday. I don't know. Like we don't edit. Our producer does not, he has no interest in editing our show. So he's like, if you want to do it, go ahead. But otherwise, so we never have, unless we go on a weird rant or something that we go, we should take that out, and it's just that one section that he'll just whack out. So that sounded terrible. I'm sorry. Hack out. Let's say that instead. See, and there you go.
That one's staying in though.
Yeah, of course. Not the first time. But anyway, so because we didn't edit, I was like, people are not going to like that or whatever. Or maybe I'm worried that we went too far off course. But because we are friends and because we're just sitting around shooting the shit as friends do, people enjoy listening to it, or they tell us they enjoy listening to it anyway. So
yeah. So what are do you have some classic Liz and Heather stories that you like to share with people?
Well, Liz always tells about the story about how we started with the podcast, and she tells it well.
Yes, I want to hear that. That's one of the questions. How did you come to podcast together? So let's hear that.
I will tell that because it's my favorite story. Again, our friendship has not been one of us like out doing weird things and getting busted doing stuff. So because we met in my 30s, her late 20s, I think, because we're a couple years apart in age.
I don't know. I've always been in my 30s.
I've also always been in my 30s, and now I feel like I've always been in my 40s. So I get it. But I think that, like I said, I was not a podcast listener. I didn't really fully even understand what a podcast was. The only thing I had ever heard before, like my husband listens to NPR. Honestly, I'd never heard of NPR before I met him. Like this is not the world I grew up in. I was a TV kid. I was a movie kid. I was not a radio kid. I didn't understand it. So I'd heard like his NPR podcast and things. So Wait, Don't Tell Me, and things like that. And I was like, I don't know, whatever. And somebody had told me before, because I was a blogger. Like I started out blogging and I love writing. I write all the time and not as much anymore, but I did. And people, you should do a podcast. That'd be hilarious. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what that is. So Heather sends me an email one time. And this was, let's see, we've been podcasting for 3 years. So this was probably almost a year before we even started thinking about it. Or close to it. So she sends me this email, I think it was over the summer, and said, hey, I have this idea and it's going to be a ton of work, a lot of fun, and it'll make absolutely no money. Are you in? The whole email. And I replied back with, of course I'm in. That literally describes every single one of my favorite projects. I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And I'm in. I'm just sign me up right now. whatever it is, I'm down. And that was her idea, was we should do a nerdy podcast, because she said, I've looked around for things that I want to listen to, and it's a sausage fest. There, if you tell it a little better, Heather, about, what you were looking for. I didn't even know. I was just happy to have somebody to sit down and talk to and record it and put it out there with dreams that more than 12 people would ever listen to it. And I think we crossed the 12 person mark a while back. So I couldn't tell you what that mark is, but
yeah, that was kind of the beginning of our podcast. But this was after, we had epic scrapbooking and Harry Potter sessions, like 20 hours of scrapbooking and, just nonstop, just getting up to go to the bathroom and eating,
We didn't even stop to eat. We just ate while we were doing it. Heather taught me how to do digital scrapbooking, or how to you actually taught me how to use Photoshop. Now I have kind of given up corporate life over the years, and I am a photographer now.
Oh, cool.
So had she not taught me how to open Photoshop and use it, my photos would suck a whole lot. So they don't anymore.
Well, opening Photoshop is the hardest part.
She told me how to pull color out of black and white, and I'm like, yes, I'm in. Start the business.
That's amazing. So, Heather, when you were looking for podcasts, do you feel that Nerdy Bitches is what you were looking for, or was there something specific you had in mind and that you just couldn't find, and that the podcast fills a void?
Yeah, that actually is exactly what it was. My husband had a podcast, but it was business and it was boring to me. And I would try and find some podcasts that I liked. And again, they were all dudes. And then every time it was women, it was like titillating, it was all sex all the time type of a discussion. And, that was just kind of in the back of my head. And then I think we went to dinner, maybe for your birthday, Liz. And me and Liz, of course, instead of talking to other guests, we just sat there and talked to each other the whole time. And we should record this. This is so much better than out there. And so that's what made me think.
Yeah, I never fully knew why you asked me. I'm glad you did. But I was like, okay, sure, I'm in. Anytime anybody says lots of fun, tons of work, no money, I'm totally down. The best. I'm going to put it on a t-shirt.
And so far it's true. Like, it's lived up to the hype.
It has.
Well, the work part, yes. Let's see. I'm having fun. And yeah, I don't have any money. So check, and check.
Yeah, she should have said it'll cost you a ton of money, because
that's
anybody
more
who thinks they're just going to pop into podcasting for nothing and make, a big salary they either already have a giant following, because I've seen people who start up right away and they're already, I hit 30,000 downloads this month. I'm like, okay, I don't know if we've ever hit 30.
Did we see the same post online? Because I was like, what?
Yeah, I saw one the other day. It was like, I just crossed like 3 million views this month. I'm like, what? We literally started and had maybe 12 people listening. And I don't even know if it was 12 at the beginning. And, it was people we knew. It was all people we knew. And I remember we were so excited, maybe 4 or 5 months in, when we hit more than 50, Twitter followers, and they weren't all people that we knew. Yeah. We're like, oh my God, it's a stranger. Yay. Yay. And it just, we did not have the rapid rise to success that other people do. And I don't know, but I honestly feel like our listeners are awesome. The people that we interact with are amazing. Mm-hmm. We worried starting this out, being women and being podcasters and having a name like Nerdy Bitches would open us up to all the trolls. Every one of them. We just expected the trolls to come falling out of bridges to trip us. And that has not been the case for us at all. We've had one weird, gross old man who likes to send us messages on Facebook in the middle of the night. He's done it twice now, and he's gross. Yeah. But that's it. In 3 years,
you're winning.
I think, Heather, you've said that we've had a couple of other randos that'll pop in.
And then I delete them, and then I thought, oh shit, I wanted Liz to read that.
Yeah, I still haven't reported the Facebook guy because his posts are so entertaining and gross that I'm like, really? Like, is this real life? Did that happen?
Like for something like completely innocuous in part of it, we're like, how dare he? Not that he objectified us, but
No, it wasn't that part. It was something really just stupid and should not have bothered us, but we were insulted.
he referred to having bushy eyebrows, and we're like, excuse me, sir.
I was like, listen. Now I have been a bushy eyebrowed girl, but my eyebrows have been on point for a couple of decades now. I mean, but no, I thought that we would end up with a lot more. And honestly, when we got the first one, we've been on it a year and a half, and we were kind of excited. I'm not gonna lie.
Finally,
Yeah, finally, somebody, like, enough people are, seeing our name that somebody wants to be gross. Yay! I don't know. It's such a backwards thing to think. Like, we totally should have been offended, and we weren't. And it's like, but we never responded to it either.
Yeah.
I mean, this idiot put his phone number on our Facebook page. I'm like, okay, do we ignore this? Do we report him, or do we troll the hell out of him?
Yeah.
And we have chosen ignoring at the moment.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. So, what is it like to podcast with each other?
Awesome.
Yeah, we have fun. I mean, when I had to move away, it was the hardest part is being remote and podcasting together. But
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Although I will say, even though we took a little bit of a break at the end of the year because Heather did move out of state, got a whole new job, like the whole shebang. And we had a little bit, because we've always recorded in person, like, for let's say 85 of our 91 episodes were in person. We physically sitting with each other and doing this. And so to have to learn the technology that we weren't using, to do that, and to get on board and making sure we had the right internet and the right hookup, blah, 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 all of this crap that you have to get it going. There's a little bit of a learning curve and a little bit of a bump. But, now that we're kind of into it and we know what we're doing again, it's kind of awesome. I mean, not that she's not here, because I miss her. Like, she's one of the only people that actually gets me out of my house. Like, there are very few people I will leave the house to go and see. And she was one of the most consistent ones that I would go hang out with. And I loved hanging out with her and her husband, and always have. But now we're talking a lot more often than we were before. Because again, when we're trying to work it into schedules to physically be in the same place to record, it's like, okay, I only have this one day this month. So let's sit down and do this epic 4-show podcast, which again takes us 4, 5, 6 hours or more to do. That's a lot of concentrated time, but then it's another month before we see each other. So now we're doing this once a week ish kind of thing. This week, we recorded our own show the other day. We're on your show today. We have another show that's invited us to be on this week. And then we have to do our show for next week. So, this is the most we've probably talked in a week ever. So I actually really like it because we get to catch up a lot more often. I think we're getting back to our shows being a reasonable length, because we don't have 47,000 topics to talk about because we just haven't seen or talked to each other.
Yeah.
And we've started doing, when we're recording our podcast, because I'm terrible at interrupting and talking over and whatever. And, we're just not that good. We're just so excited and there's so much to say. And so you just, blah, blah, blah. But now we're actually using a Google Hangout while we're doing our recording so that we can physically see each other and hopefully catch those visual cues of the other person's about to talk, shut your face, which is for me. And it's all me.
So Heather, from your point of view, what is it like to podcast together?
Oh, I have a lot of fun. We get to talk about stuff that, if you sit down with somebody that's not a nerd or doesn't have this interest in you, you will drive them nuts if you talk for 40 minutes on Doctor Who. So
True.
We get the opportunity to kind of talk about our fandoms and what's excited about them, and then we grow, and then we challenge each other. Like she had me watch all of Battlestar Galactica. I made her watch all of Doctor Who, and now we're fans of both. So I think that it's opened kind of the doors on that front. I'm not historically a Star Wars fan, and she actually picked a book club that was a Star Wars book. and it was so goddamn good. Like, and to this day, like my favorite Star Wars character is the one that you've never seen because it's Quinlan Voss. Nobody even knows who he is.
Yeah, I haven't read any books or done any of that. I've only seen the movies. So
they're so good.
They are good.
They are so good. Oh my gosh. We just did another one last week. So
I'll have to check them out.
I was like, ooh, I got her in on one. I can make another one.
So it sounds like there's like introductions to different things. Like Liz, you talked about, here's how to open Photoshop, like helping there. But then also within your topic, here are the fandoms or here are these things. And then you can try them out. So you've definitely introduced each other to a lot. But one of the questions I like to ask people is, sort of thinking about your friendship as a whole, what is it meant to be friends? So Liz, what does it mean to be friends with Heather? Or Heather, what has it meant to you to be friends with Liz?
Well, obviously, there was somebody out there that was like me, right? We have so much in common, and that's just not seen. Yeah, I never met anybody that I've had as much in common with. In fact, I didn't even really know how much of a nerd I was. It's to go with me to Harry Potter meetup.
That was the best and worst day ever.
And then my husband was mentioning that I was a bigger nerd than him. And I was like, excuse me? He's like, you went to a place where people dressed up like Harry Potter and sorted into houses. And I was like, oh yeah, that is pretty nerdy.
Like, yeah, we did that. We absolutely did that.
Yep, absolutely.
We didn't dress up, so somehow it makes it better. I don't know.
I mean, just to have somebody that's just like so similar that we can talk to. Like, I mean, who else is as like as me and Liz? I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never had another friend that gets me as well as Heather does. And I don't have to be embarrassed about any of my nerdery. Like anybody I've ever been friends with in the past, sometimes we'll have some things in common or they'll like some certain things. But when you start, like she said, when you sit down and talk about, a certain fandom for 40 minutes, a lot of times their eyes glaze over or they'll just call you a dork and move on to something much more mainstream and much more entertaining. But she doesn't. We can talk about this forever, or I'll say, I don't really like that. And she's like, try it again, dummy. And I'm like, okay. So, like, all right, well, Heather said to, so I'm going to watch it. And I always love it. And that's been an awesome thing. And in addition to us being so similar, we also have the differences of, I have this way of thinking and she is, she's a much more detail oriented person than I am. She just gets that stuff. For me, I'm like, I want to talk. I want to think. I want to brainstorm and do all these amazing things. And I was like, how are we going to do this? So we complement each other very well. In addition to being very similar in certain ways, we also complement each other because we can pick up where the other one isn't as strong. So, and for me, that's always been the perfect relationship of any kind is I can't be with somebody who is exactly like me in every way because nothing will get done ever. Like, we will have amazing ideas and nothing will ever come of it. So
yeah, if they have the exact same like thoughts as you all the time, so we think differently about the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's really cool because it seems like not only does that allow you to be really great friends, but it also allows you to be really successful in collaborating, like on the podcast. So if you have that thing in common, then you can talk about the topic and you can enjoy all that. But then additionally, I imagine getting the work done for the podcast, all that work that Heather mentioned and the idea, like it's going to be a lot of work, that it's easy to get done because you both can take on what your strengths are, I guess. So it seems like a really good collaborative friendship.
I think so. And, we have different strengths and we also have different jobs. Like I work at home and I do photography. So I do a lot of my work on weekends. And so I'm here and I can play on social media a lot of times. So I'm pimping our podcast all over the place all the time and trying to bust this up and do whatever. And Heather is awesome at getting the show ready, getting it to producer Craig to put out onto the interwebs for us, because honestly, I don't have access to that and I have no idea how to do it, even if I did. And, that's one of the things that is great because we each have our own kind of thing that we do and we can still cross over. And it's always fun whenever people start talking to us through our actual podcast page on Twitter, because we both use it. Like we both use it a lot. So, people come at, like when we met some people at Comic Palooza, they came up to Heather like, oh my gosh, we've been talking. She's like, okay,
no.
Sure. It's like, no, that was me, but all right, it's fine.
So, couple questions. If you are so similar, does that mean you're both in the same Harry Potter house? Like which Hogwarts house are you in?
We're Hufflepuff.
We did Hufflepuff, but both of us actually feel like we were Ravenclaw, but our friend was going with us, and he was so Hufflepuff that we're like, well, we were close enough to Hufflepuff.
Yeah, he's painfully Hufflepuff and very sweet and adorable. I think actually all three of us, because another friend of ours went with us as well, and all three of us were kind of walking the Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw line, so we could all kind of go in and out of any of that. But one, we like the honey badger because he doesn't give a shit. And so we've decided that it's actually a honey badger, not just a regular badger, as the Hufflepuff house. We also like sandwiches, so we're not opposed to that. So we decided we would just take it and go with the Hufflepuffs. And, there's not I think when you go into Gryffindor, everybody wants to be Gryffindor, right? That's what you want to do. I think it's a lot of pressure to be in Gryffindor, but you got to be cool and awesome all the time. You have to be brave all the time. That's a lot of work. I'm happy to be brave and bold when it calls for it. Other times I'm happy to be friendly and have a sandwich or sit in the back and just talk about people when they're not looking. I'm okay with that. That's why we have a podcast.
Is a Hufflepuff trait per se.
That's probably the 1% Slytherin that I am right there. Is talking shit about people. But, I don't say anything behind somebody's back that I wouldn't also tell them if they piss me off enough. So
yes. See, that's the difference, right? I'm definitely a Hufflepuff with Ravenclaw, so I call myself a Huffleclaw or a Ravenpuff. That doesn't sound as cool.
A Ravenpuff sounds like a bad haircut. Like something you tried to go with for prom and it just didn't blow out right. And so
I tried to get a Ravenpuff and it just, it's like when everyone got the Rachel from Friends and it just did not work for them.
a bit of a Ravenpuff hair right there. So.
That's funny. So then last question before like closure sort of things. Who's the nerdiest out of the two of you?
I don't know. I thought you were going to ask us who the bitchiest was.
Well, I had that idea and I was like, I don't know if I can go there for the first question. Well, we could do nerdiest and then bitchiest or vice versa.
I don't know. I think it's a pretty even split, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, she doesn't have the same love for Batman that I do.
Oh.
I still like Batman. I'm just not, I think Batman's kind of a tool half the time, but
that's kind of his charm.
Ben Affleck.
She didn't see Star Wars until she was an adult, so part of me can't comprehend that at all. Like it doesn't even process in my brain.
Yeah, Star Wars outweighs Batman in my opinion. In terms of like nerdiness, but also what people have seen. Like if someone was like, I didn't see Batman, I would be like, oh, you haven't seen Star Wars? That's probably my reaction.
Well, I've seen Batman. I mean, that's the thing. Like, even though I'm not, okay, I will just say I'm more Marvel and she's more DC. So there is that. We've definitely said that. I'm more Star Wars and she is Star Trek, even though we both like each. I do not believe you can like the two equally, but they're also not the same thing. Everybody's like, oh, they're so similar. I'm like, they're really not. One is science fiction and the other is fantasy. Like you just can't even. Star Wars is not science fiction. There is no science involved. Like it's just space.
Yeah, I'm more movies and Liz is more books. We're really kind of equally nerdy on what we have. We just might be skewed in different topics.
Yeah, I like stats. I hate stats.
Physical analysis. That's
She's selling her stats on the streets for money.
Well, it sounds like you got all the bases covered though too, and then when you don't, you'll be the newbie, right? But it sounds like you have a lot of the bases covered: Star Trek, Star Wars, Marvel, DC, books, movies. It seems like you got everything covered. Which again, makes for a very collaborative friendship, I would think.
It absolutely is. And like I said, where one of us excels, we will either drag the other one along or we will inspire them to want to learn it. And that's the thing. Both of us are big learners. Heather's just finished graduating. I graduated a million years ago, 2 degrees, and I will go back tomorrow if I had the money to do it. I really would. And I love it. So we naturally want to learn. And we want to open ourselves up to this. And, I was married to a jock the first time around who did not think any of this stuff was interesting at all. He thought I was a big dork for liking it. I'm like, I don't care. I think that this stuff is way more interesting and creative than just watching sports all day. Like, wah, wah. It's just not my thing. We were just terribly matched to begin with. So having someone else that I can do these things with and hang out with and go just completely nerdy nutso with, we go to Comic Palooza here in Houston and it's the best weekend of the year. We had so much fun. And it's like, there are very few people in this world that I would want to share that experience with. And Heather is one of them. She is right up there with, if you don't come back from California for Comic Palooza this year, I'm going to fly up there and drag you back. Like,
the line has been drawn, Heather.
I already took the days off.
I know.
Oh, yay.
This was part of our agreement for her to be allowed to move away. You have to come back for Comic Palooza. I don't want to do it alone. So,
yeah. And now it's recorded here, so now it's going to be out there in the world. So you're going to have to. It sounds like if it's a good time to share that you would want to come back. And the days are already off, so you're halfway there, right?
Yep.
For bitchiest, I think I'm the bitchiest.
See, I thought I was. So, I guess it's another even draw there. Again, we're kind of bitchy in different ways. I think Heather's bitchy is more understated. I think people of the two of us, when they meet us, they would think that she is more friendly than I am. I don't know that that's really true, but I think they would think that up front. So
yeah. And I think that if you work for me, I'm the bitchier person. And so that's where I get that, because women are bitchy at work and men are.
So you're the boss lady.
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
She is the boss lady. But yeah, I think that we both bring our own unique bitchness, but I think we're also the bitches people want to be friends with. We're the ones people want to sit in the corner and talk about somebody's ugly shoes. Not that person being ugly, but their shoes are ugly. We may talk about that. Actually, we don't really care about fashion at all. Although every time we've been on a dude show, that's what we talk about. I'm like, I've never talked about fashion in my freaking life, but we get on the dude show. We're like, look at this guy's outfit. What is he wearing? Why is she wearing mom pants up to her armpits? What is happening? That would not be comfortable to fight in. We did a Kill Bill. We did Kill Bill podcast. We're like, what? Look at her pants. And they're like, we have never had a wardrobe discussion on this show before.
But it's also important because it's like, when you think about the nerdoms and the fandoms and all the things that we watch and what they try to pass off, I'm like, so Transformers, whatever one has Megan Fox in it. And the entire time I was pissed off because they're running through Chicago and the Decepticons and all this. She's wearing like white pants and she isn't dirty. And I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
Yeah. And in Hunger Games, Katniss lives in a tree for like a month and her hair is still on point. She doesn't smell. I'm like, my hair isn't on point right now and I'm not living in a tree. So these are things that men write into scripts and women go, what the fuck is that about? Like, it doesn't make any sense at all. So
I'm completely on board when you have those fashion discussions, because a lot of the time, I mean, I believe in hobbits, I believe in wizards, I believe in all sorts of stuff. But then you got Megan Fox in white pants, and I'm like, this is the stupidest ass movie I've ever seen. It's so fake.
Right.
I can't get on board with this. Her pants are not dirty.
They're dirty before I leave the house.
I haven't worn white pants since I was 10 years old. I'm just saying. There's always been way too many options that could go wrong with white pants. And I remember seeing a friend who was wearing white jeans one day and you could almost see through it. And I'm like, listen, honey. And this was my best friend at the time. And I was like, I hate to tell you this, but I can see the ounce of cellulite on your ass through those pants. Don't ever wear them again. And I feel bad. I was like, listen, I'm not trying to body shame. I'm not trying to do whatever. But as your friend, It is my
Yeah.
responsibility to tell you that, one, I can see your thong through your pants, and that's tacky. And two, it's not flattering. There are much better looks than that.
Yes.
I was like, I don't think that that's the sexy you're trying to give off. So
white doesn't do many favors for 99.9% of people. So let's blame the color white.
yeah.
Black, different story, right? Black pants, they work for everyone.
For everyone. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, big fan. So what sort of things are you doing, just sort of looking to the future? What are some of the things, topics, projects, any episodes, social media, anything you want to promote, what y'all are working on next?
What are we working on, Heather?
Well, we're continuing with our book club series where we're just going through the Harry Potter books again. We've already done book 1. Now we're going to be doing book 2, which is kind of fun because we're trying to keep it like as if we were reading it the first time, trying to compartmentalize it. So that's kind of fun. But we're podcasters, so we keep on with our podcast, and we go to Comic-Cons and we report back on them for our fans.
Nice. Have you been to the San Diego Comic-Con?
No.
I think I might have a panic attack.
Yeah. That honestly, that has been my biggest concern. I was a little concerned with it with Comicpalooza, even though it's a much smaller convention by comparison, but it's still a lot of people in one place at one time.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
That was always a very, like I said, I don't like to leave the house a lot for people. Like, I don't like, the world is a little people-y for me a lot of the times, and I just don't want to deal. But we had such a good time, and we have met so many awesome people who are other podcasters because of it, that we have our own little clan there now when we go. And so it's
That's
amazing to just be able to walk through this place where there are 40,000 people and go, hey, I know that guy. Hey, I know this guy. Hey, I met this person that one time. And that's really fun. It's really nice to have this people to share this experience with. So it's not just you, the lone nerd, wandering through the hall going, I don't know where I'm going. It's awkward. I want to go home.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. San Diego is big and scary. I've been to Philly Comic-Con and I didn't realize I was a nerd until I went to Philly Comic-Con just so that I could meet Norman Reedus from The Walking Dead.
We got our picture with Felicia Day this year. Thank you.
Yay. Yeah. I was just so excited. I was like, yay. But then when I got there, I felt like I didn't fit in because...
You weren't in costume?
Yeah, no, I did. I was just wearing like a shirt and a scarf, and I was like, "Oh man, next time I do this, I need to really like think about what I'm wearing. Like at least wear a fan shirt of some sort. Like I like this fandom. Like I don't know if I'd get full on dressed up, but I have been to PotterCon too. So
yeah, the first one that I went to, I had fan shirt, or I had our podcast shirt. We have a Nerdy Bitches t-shirt.
Yeah.
And so I had that the first day because we were on a panel. First con. Here we are on a panel. And then last year we did a live show at the convention, which was awesome.
That's awesome.
And we played Cards Against Humanity with our audience, which was amazing and hilarious. And my 10-year-old niece was in the room, and I'm like, we're all going to hell, but whatever. She's cool. And she's a nerdy bitch in training is what she's a nerdy bee in training because she's so I'm wearing either my Nerdy Bitches shirt, or I've got on, I think the next day I probably wore like a Harry Potter shirt. I don't know. I got 1,000 different t-shirts. Yeah. And so I had this on, and I'm walking through on the floor, and I'm like, I have never felt so out of place being out of costume. Usually a costume involves a walk of shame of some sort. But in this case, I felt like I was the one with the big arrow of, doesn't fit in because I didn't have a costume on. Now, this has not prompted me to invest in cosplay or starting to do this because, one, I just honestly can't think of a character that I really like enough to dress up. I love a ton of characters, but I just, nothing has stood out like, oh, I've got to be her for the day. It is just not happened yet. I almost went this past year as Daria, but I didn't get it together.
I was just thinking, who would I be? And that's what I was thinking of because I have glasses and long hair, and students have told me for years that's who I should be for Halloween.
Yeah, so I actually thought I was going to do one of our friends from another podcast here in town was doing a erotic fan fiction read off tournament. And I was going to read in this tournament. We weren't writing it. We were just pulling stuff that we found online and would read it. And we were going to, the group that I was talking about doing this with, we were going to do a Daria one because apparently that's a thing. And it's out there. And I found the whole costume online, but I never quite got it together and I never could commit to it didn't. I guess I just don't have the extraneous funds for that kind of thing to just go buy an outfit for one day. And then it turned out that our live show was at the same time as this tournament. So it didn't work out for me to get to read naughty fan fiction in front of live people.
That's too bad.
maybe this year. I don't know. So
Heather, do you have an idea of who you would dress up as cosplayer or same thing that
I know who she should dress up as?
I'm not dressing up as Rose.
You look just like her. You look just like her.
If I did dress up in cosplay, I would probably be Peter Capaldi's doctor, just because I like the plaid pants and the long.
You would look like Jodie Whittaker in the Christmas special. So you could cosplay Jodie Whittaker cosplaying the doctor. And be just meta as hell right there.
Yeah, it's like the inception of cosplay. Well, very glad to hear about your friendship. Here's my nerddom. It's friendship.
You know what? That's a nerddom that more people need to get into, I think.
Yeah, I agree. So I just appreciate that. If that's not something you would normally talk about for 40 minutes without people's eyes glazing over, that you would do it for me. So.
Yeah, I could talk about it for days, and I really enjoyed it. And it was funny when I saw you put out the call for, hey, who's podcasting with their friends? I'm like, who's not? Like, I seriously could not even fathom doing the show or any show really with somebody that I wasn't friends with. Like,
that's fair.
It doesn't even cross my mind to do either a solo show or to do a show with somebody that I just tolerate or barely know or work with. I couldn't even imagine doing it. Like, I think that us being as good of friends as we are has given us so much freedom of expression because I don't have to worry that she's judging me. And if she is, whatever, I don't care. Like, I know she's not going to shit on me for whatever that I like that she doesn't like. We're just going to go, are you nuts? And then, all right, move on. Like, I don't like you any less because you don't watch the Gilmore Girls, though I really wish you would so we can talk about it.
You don't watch the Gilmore Girls?
But I don't watch Game of Thrones, and I know she wants to talk about that. So this is our next cross. Like she said, we did the Battlestar Galactica Doctor Who crossover. So our next one is Game of Thrones, Gilmore Girls. That's
G&G.
Honestly, I never watched the Gilmore Girls until the beginning of last year. It was like the first time I actually sat down and watched it. But then it was like, oh, got it. Or maybe the year before, because I watched the whole thing before the revival came out. And I was like, I want to talk about this because there's so many things to say. And
Gilmore Girls, one of my really good friends, I lived with her in graduate school, and she didn't watch a lot of TV. She's not a TV person like me, but she would sometimes watch the cooking, network or whatever, Food Network, whatever you call it. And then she would watch Gilmore Girls. And the theme song would come on, and I'm like, what the fuck? What is this? And then I'd be like, I'm going to go do something in my room. And I apologized to her because, like you were talking about before, you don't get on each other if you don't like something. I was kind of mean about Gilmore Girls to her. And it's fantastic in all the right ways and in all the wrong ways. And Team Logan for life. I don't know.
There are so many things I love about this show. And then when I went back and watched the revival, and they almost point out the flaws in this show. And you're like, oh God, how did I not see that? They are actually kind of horrible people. And I love it. That's kind of the best part of it is like, you're with them and then you're kind of not, but you're still like, I like that they went this route and they stopped trying to pretend like Rory is perfect because she's not.
Well, but the other thing is I actually read an article, and sorry, Heather, you're like, oh God, I'm really now going to have to watch this. But I read an article that said that the people who created the show what we saw in the revival was what was supposed to happen to Rory right after she graduated from Yale. So right when the show ended,
Right.
And it ended early. So there is a huge difference between what she does in the revival as, say, a 24-year-old,
Right.
than, say, as a 30-something.
30-something, exactly.
Yeah. And so I think that's fascinating too. But yeah, I could talk about Gilmore Girls all day long. So I look forward to that episode.
It'll be a while because even if she gets through it, it'll be a slog for me to get through Game of Thrones. I know it will be. So.
Yeah. Well, you just have to make it through all the weddings and you'll be fine.
I've seen the first season and I read half of the first book before somebody spoiled it for me and I got pissed off and stopped reading it. So yeah. I have attempted, I've made the attempt and I've yet to find the hook. Like as soon as everybody's like, oh, just keep watching, you'll love it. And I'm like, okay.
I'm like on season 4 and I've stopped, but I would like to finish it because I don't like to not finish the things I start.
Yeah, I am usually very much a completist. If I start a book, I feel like I have to finish it. But now, I don't know. I'm trying to do this year like a 52 book challenge. I don't have time to read bad books. I really don't.
Yeah.
I started reading one last night and it's a Michael Crichton book and I love him and I love his books. This book was clearly written in like 1989 when nobody had women in the workplace. I don't even know what's happening. And they're like, this lady's going to be our boss. And I'm like, fuck you. Like, I can't even read this book that I know will probably end up being amazing because they can't deal with women in the workplace. And I'm like,
and move on to the next.
I literally just moved it to a shelf in Goodreads of, books I stopped. Like, I just don't want to deal with it. So.
Well, I just started Helter Skelter and I'm like 24 pages in. I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. And it's only 684 pages long.
Yeah, I hit 30 pages of about a 600, 800 page book. I don't even know. I stopped looking at it and I was like, not going to spend the time doing this because that's the thing. When I have to slog through something, it's not
going to be fun.
It's not going to be fun. I'm not going to enjoy it. It's not getting 5 stars. So,
yeah. And it's like, do what makes us happy and crappy books is not it. Well, this has been a lot of fun talking. It's so great to be able to talk to different people about their different friendships and also talk to other podcasters. I feel like as I've gotten in here, I'm starting to get to know people, but truly doing interviews and talking to you, you get to know who are your colleagues, if you will, you know what I mean? And I think that is great. So I really appreciate that you would take the time out on your Tuesday night to talk to me.
Thank you for inviting us. We appreciate it.
Liz and Heather's friendship is a great reminder of so many things. First, your true friends will let you nerd out over whatever nerdy stuff you're into, even if it's not their cup of tea. When it's not their cup of tea, a true friend will still make you that cup of tea and they will drink that tea with you. And I think what this does is that we can introduce stuff to our friends and friends introduce stuff to us, and we can expand our understanding of so many things. We can expand our interests, our thoughts, our feelings, just our whole view of the world. And so drink that tea, friends. Drink that tea with your friends. Second, and this is critical. Don't miss out on the opportunities to be friends with someone. How many times have we just said, I'll stay home, or, oh, the couch is looking really cozy, or there's a marathon of something ridiculous on TV, or I'm in the middle of this Netflix show, or I'm guessing we won't get along, or people are weird, or they said this thing and I didn't like that. How many excuses do we make? Seriously, how many excuses do we make and then we miss out on our Liz or on our Heather? Don't miss out on your Liz or Heather. And so one of the things to consider is that we need to take the chance to make opportunities and to take the opportunities. And if the friendship doesn't work out later, that's fine. But you'll never know. You'll never know if you don't give it a chance. I feel like I'm talking about dating in a way. Like you'll never find a partner if you're sitting at home. You got to take a chance on an app or this, that, or the other thing. Same thing, but friends are cool and we need friends, right? We need lots of friends. A partner will come. Okay, that's a different episode. Maybe a different podcast. But seriously, let's lock up those excuses and get out there. And if it doesn't work out, then we can make a new opportunity or take a new opportunity. And one of the things, I'm really glad that Heather brought this up, because one of the excuses that we can make, or one of the things that can happen because of, as Heather said, the societal bullshit that indicates that women should be in competition with each other. And I hate that stereotype or that expectation. We don't need to compete. We can all have a piece of the pie. Or maybe we can just eat that pie together while we scrapbook and have the best night ever, right? I don't understand this idea that women can't be in support of each other, or that we have to be jealous of each other, or we have to envy each other. And I'm so glad that Heather was like, let me look past all the stupid ass socialization and societal norms of jealousy. And because she looked past that, she did not miss out on her Liz. And so although we might make excuses, I think we also need to be mindful of the ways in which, I think she talked about being coded, right? We need to think about sort of the influence and impact that our society or other people might have on us, and how then we might approach friendship. Because certainly our society would say that friendship is not as important, or there's all sorts of stereotypes and expectations we place on relationship types or gender, whatever the case might be, that maybe we should be a little bit mindful of that, so that doesn't become an excuse to miss out on our Liz or our Heather. But overall, I think that Liz said it, and that is, we're the bitches people want to be friends with. And it's so true. Not only did they give us all these great reminders and these great stories of how they met and the things that they overcame or looked past to become friends, and how much it means to podcast together, but you will want to be friends with them too, just like me. When you listen, their friendship radiates through their podcast, and you can tell that they nerd out together, and that they respect the nerd out, and they respect the bitchiness. And I just appreciate their podcast and their friendship so much. If you like what you had in your ear holes in this episode, y'all definitely need to check out Nerdy Bitches. And as I said, there is quite the library to binge on, almost 100 episodes. So folks, dig in.
Yeah.
We're excited to report that the Gilmore Girls episode happened, and you may wish to start there. Give Liz and Heather a follow on Instagram at Nerdy Bitches and on Twitter at Nerdy Bitches Pod. And of course, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks for listening to Best Forevers. I am so grateful for all the friends I made since starting the podcast, all the support I received, and for every single listen. Be sure to check out Best Forevers on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Best Forevers Pod. And please share your friendship stories. You know I want to hear it all. And you can do this by going to bestforeverspod.com/surveys and telling me about your friendships, or email me the stories at bestforeverspod@gmail.com. If your fandom is friendship, just like me, you may consider supporting the movement to love on our friends more and the podcast on patreon.com/bestforeverspod. There's lots of cool perks and goals. Check it out. I would love to call you friends with benefits. Yes. Okay. I'm so glad to celebrate Nerdy Bitches. They're the nerdiest nerds and the bitchiest bitches I know, and I love them and their podcasts. Even more, Liz and Heather made me appreciate the idea that we can all geek out on our geeky stuff. And when our friends geek out with you, it's the best. Because without our nerds and without our bitches, who would we be?